Part 1. The Early Builder and the Eureka Boat. Andrew Jackson Higgins was born on August 28, 1886, in Columbus, Nebraska, 1,000 miles from the sea. From a young age, Higgins was a builder with a stubborn streak of ingenuity. At just 12 years old, he famously constructed a large iceboat in his mother's basement, only to find it was too big for the doorway. Instead of giving up, he reportedly jacked up the house and removed a section of the basement wall to get his creation out, later repairing it without his mother's knowledge. This was the kind of determined, rule-bending spirit that would define his entire life and career. After attending Creighton Prep High School, where he was expelled for brawling, he served in the Nebraska National Guard, gaining his first experience moving troops across the water on the Platte River. Higgins eventually moved away from the Midwest and the lumber industry, arriving in New Orleans in 1910. The city's port and the intricate web of bayous captured his attention, and in 1922, he started his own company, the Higgins Lumber and Export Company. He built a fleet of sailing ships to transport exotic hardwoods, but his work in the Louisiana marshes revealed a significant problem. Traditional boat designs were inefficient, getting stuck and damaged by submerged logs and shallow waters. Higgins, who famously despised inefficiency, set out to solve the problem himself. The solution was a revolutionary boat he designed in 1926, the Eureka. The Eureka was a rugged, shallow-draft craft featuring a key innovation, a recessed propeller in a tunnel in the hull. This protected the propeller from damage and allowed the boat to operate in mere inches of water, turning almost in its own length. The boat was a sensation among oil drillers, trappers, and loggers along the Gulf Coast. Higgins's relentless perfectionism led him to continuously improve the design, adding a spoonbill bow that let the boat run onto a bank and back off with ease. By 1930, his focus shifted entirely from lumber to boat building, and he founded Higgins Industries. For years, Higgins pushed his designs, trying to get the U.S. military to take notice. He faced a skeptical naval establishment that preferred to develop its own vessels. Unafraid of confrontation, Higgins once saw a Navy design blueprint and scrawled on it, "This boat stinks," a testament to his bold confidence. He finally got his chance when the U.S. Marine Corps, frustrated with the Navy's poor designs for amphibious landings, expressed interest in his Eureka boat. After successful military tests in 1938, Higgins's boat was adopted as the landing craft, personal, large, or LCPL. However, there was still a major drawback. Troops had to climb over the sides to exit, leaving them vulnerable to enemy fire. The solution came from an unlikely source. U.S. Marine Lieutenant Victor Krulak showed Higgins a photograph of a Japanese landing boat with a hinged bow ramp used during their invasion of China. Higgins immediately recognized the potential, and within a month, his team had a working prototype. The result was the Landing Craft, Vehicle, Personnel, the LCVP, which quickly became known as the Higgins boat. Built mostly of plywood, which was faster to produce and used less vital steel, the LCVP was 36 feet long and could carry a 36-man platoon, or a jeep and 12 men, or 8,000 pounds of cargo. Most importantly, the drop-down ramp at the bow allowed troops and vehicles to be quickly and safely delivered directly onto a beach. The unassuming vessel, born in the muddy waters of Louisiana, was about to change the course of history. Part 2. Wartime Genius and Social Innovation. With the United States' entry into World War II, Higgins Industries went into overdrive. The demand for the LCVP was immense, but Higgins proved more than equal to the challenge. A single boatyard with fewer than 75 workers in 1938 expanded into a bustling network of 7 plants employing over 25,000 people by late 1943. The Industrial Canal in New Orleans became a vital artery of wartime production, churning out not just LCVPs but also PT boats, torpedo tubes, gun turrets, and even components for the Manhattan Project. Higgins was a manufacturing genius, applying assembly line methods to produce boats at an astonishing rate. His workforce, a diverse array of individuals, was as innovative as his designs. Higgins Industries was one of the first factories in New Orleans to be fully racially integrated, employing men and women, African Americans and whites, seniors, and people with disabilities. Higgins famously paid all of his workers equal wages based on their function, not their gender or race. In return, his employees shattered production records, turning out more than 20,000 boats by the end of the war, including 12,500 LCVPs. The impact of these boats was global. They were deployed in every major American amphibious operation in the European and Pacific theaters. But their most legendary moment came on June 6, 1944. On that day, thousands of Higgins boats ferried Allied troops to the beaches of Normandy during the D-Day invasion. The ability to unload troops and equipment directly onto open beaches, bypassing heavily defended ports, proved absolutely crucial to the Allies' success. General Dwight D. Eisenhower himself would later declare, "Andrew Higgins is the man who won the war for us." Even Adolf Hitler reportedly referred to Higgins as the new Noah, recognizing the unstoppable force his boats represented. Part 3. Post-war collapse and lasting legacy. Higgins Industries. For Higgins, the switch to a peacetime economy presented challenges his wartime success had not prepared him for. The most immediate and devastating blow was the cancellation of all remaining military contracts in October 1945. The immense industrial machine Higgins had built ground to a halt overnight. What had been a strength during the war, Higgins's overextended network of 7 massive plants, became a costly and unneeded liability. Despite his progressive stance on workforce integration, Higgins's paternalistic and strongly anti-union approach proved disastrous in the post-war climate of growing labor activism. As his workers sought to unionize and improve conditions, strikes crippled his remaining firms. In a fit of frustration in late 1945, Higgins announced he would shut down his New Orleans plants and restart his business elsewhere under a new, non-union structure. Higgins attempted to pivot to consumer goods like pleasure boats and home appliances, but his business model, designed for massive-scale wartime production, failed to compete in the consumer market. The company struggled, bled money through legal and labor disputes, and was eventually scrapped for parts. One of his massive factories in the Michoud area of New Orleans was later converted into a NASA assembly facility where the Saturn V rocket would be built, a fitting afterlife for a space that had built such revolutionary machinery. Andrew Higgins's personal health declined significantly in the post-war years. The intense stress of battling with labor and trying to save his crumbling empire took a heavy toll. He died in New Orleans on August 1, 1952, at the age of 65, after suffering a fatal stroke. He was buried in Metairie Cemetery, a local legend whose immense contributions had faded from public memory. Decades later, Higgins's legacy would finally be restored. In 2000, the National World War II Museum was established in New Orleans, partly in recognition of the city's vital role in producing the landing craft. The museum campus is located on Andrew Higgins Drive, and a full-scale reproduction of a Higgins boat stands in its Louisiana Memorial Pavilion. This testament ensures that the story of the determined boy from Nebraska, who found his purpose in the Louisiana bayous and built the boat that helped win the war, will not be forgotten. The once overlooked hero, Andrew Jackson Higgins, is now celebrated for his ingenious design, his social foresight, and his undeniable role in carrying the hopes of the Allied forces to victory on the world's most famous beaches.